us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's early, isn't it? We're doing this nice and early.
It is early, but if I imagine that's how most people get, a lot of stuff done by being nice and organized, getting stuff in early, prioritizing, doing the most important things first. Um, so yeah, although it's early and it's the 27th of December, so the day after Boxing Day, we're here and we are going to be talking about, the perfect planner company and knowing how to be a successful entrepreneur and getting your shit together in order to be successful. So very excited to get going with that.
Amazing.
So
Thank you.
I thought that we could kick off the show by well, I'm going to ask you, what is the perfect planner?
Well, I think what makes the perfect planner. So when we're talking about planner, we're talking about the stationery, that lovely product, a brilliant sort of planner that we all like using. And there are so many of us out there that love those sort of pen to paper type products. In my opinion, the perfect planner is something that encompasses everything in your life. So what is important to you in your life, it is encompassed within that product. So something that sort of helps you and prompts you and guides you through many different phases that we go through, not only in our day, but in our week and in our month and in our year. And I created a product that can help people do that in so many different elements of their lives. And so for me, yeah, that perfect planner is that product, that beautiful product that you're proud to hold, that you look at and it inspires you daily, motivates you, and takes you through many elements of your life in a calm, consistent, motivating way every single day.
Excellent. I mean, I know that the Perfect Planner Company has got different planners to help guide people through all of the, parts of their life that you've just mentioned, like the business and lifestyle planner, the lifestyle planner just on its own, and you've got like the gratitude diary and the bedside book, which I think is phenomenal, by the way. I think that all of those kind of things, like the bedside book and the gratitude, if we're talking about purely how to be a successful entrepreneur, I do think those things are really important in order to have peace of mind and clarity to wake up in the morning and then, go and conquer that business and lifestyle aspect of your life.
Absolutely, because that's the thing is, it blends. When we're entrepreneurs, we all say, oh, work time, is going to be this and family time is this. But no matter how hard we try, it does all blend. Our life sort of merges together because, we have all done it. We've done those calls where we've got the baby sat on our lap. We've done those things where, you're writing some emails and then you dive into the school emails or something like that. It does just sort of all blend into one. So these products help you to kind of separate all of that temporarily in our mind because certainly, I'm a mum, I've got two young girls. I get it, I understand what it is like to try to be an entrepreneur and we see sort of what a typical entrepreneur is. We read the books and we listen to the podcasts and we watch the programs and we follow people and we follow all those gurus on social media. And at certain times you think, oh, they seemingly have it all together, but they don't. They're just organized, they're just organized in the way that they do it and they're organized in their mind. And that is what makes people successful. But, it does all blend together. So we have to find ways to manage that because I don't think, as I said, in that ideal world, we'd want to kind of, here's my work time and here is my family time and da, 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 da. But at the end of the day, we can't help what goes on in our heads and thoughts do come in. Oh God, I wish I'd, while you're typing an email, I need to take the rubbish out, or I've got to go and pick up my child from school, whatever it might be. It does happen. So it's about separating it there on paper, knowing then that we've got everything in our life covered and then we can actually be successful in what we're doing at that moment as well. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it does. I mean, it sounds to me like you've got a lot of experience needing to be organized and having to find methods to help you. But what I was interested to know is like, what was there a specific point in your life that gave you that light bulb moment to create Perfect Planner Company?
I mean, the business now is 8 years old, and it's a very, very different business to what it was 8 years ago. And if I'm honest, 8 years ago, I didn't think it would be what it is today, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, the business came about. There's quite a lot of different sort of ways about how it sort of came to be what it is. So first up, my background was in the theatre and events industry, and I worked as a stage manager. And for anybody that doesn't know what a stage manager is, and I don't think many people do unless you're in that industry, basically, I call it the glue. You're the glue that holds a production together. So there's many, many different departments in a theatre and in live events, but a stage manager oversees all of that, and they sort of bring that together from the technical side of theatre. So, as an audience member, you'd be out there watching a show, and you'd see different things happening. So whether it's lighting changes or sound changes or whatever it might be, scene changes, costume changes, there's all those different departments that deal with that. And the stage manager oversees all of that, but they also oversee the acting company to make sure that they're on stage on time, that they're doing the right things, that they've got the right props in their hands, because that, and there's a whole team around that, and that just needs so much organization and precision of organization as well, that you have to pay attention to that tiniest of detail, because that tiniest of detail, if it goes wrong, can have a massive knock-on effect. It could mean that somebody's standing in the wrong place when a scene change is happening, and that could be dangerous, or it means that they've got the wrong thing in their hands or the wrong costume, and and so I worked in the West End. I was a West End stage manager in London for nearly 25 years. And no, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but I was really good at what I did, because my brain works in a really sort of linear way, that you start here and you finish here, and this is your end goal and this is the start. And so I was super experienced in planning, because I would be involved in the planning of the shows and the creation of the shows, and then from those sort of technical processes of putting all those different layers on, to suddenly, an audience member would be there and they're watching a West End show, which is all spectacular, all singing, all dancing. And I would be involved from that process right from the beginning. So my understanding of goal setting and planning has been sort of in my veins for 25 years. And I adored the theatre, absolutely adored it. But it isn't a career that is conducive to having a family. So when I had my daughter, and I did go back to work for a while, I was working on the show Warhorse till my first daughter, Isabel, was 3. But I just couldn't do it anymore. She was going to school, and I was really aware that she would be going to school, and I would send her off to school in the morning, and by the time she got in from school, I'd be going off to work on the show, and I would never see her. So I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't work this way. So I quit. But I didn't know what else I was going to do. I was like, oh my God, this is, this nightmare. What am I going to do? So I came across direct selling, network marketing. And I thought, okay, well, I'll do this temporarily. I'm going to do this for a little while. And when I joined the business that I did, I really quickly saw that there were lots of mums like me that were sort of really juggling that being a mum aspect and running a business. And so I thought, well, I'm organised. I know how to manage my time. I'm going to help these mums. So I started to create like little worksheets for these people in my team, these mums, and gradually a few other people sort of got on board with these worksheets that I was creating that sort of really helped us to map out our day. And they were so simple, but just for all of us to be able to put that pen to paper and visualize what our day would look like in network marketing, and visualize um, how we could sort of effectively be mum and be this all singing, all dancing network marketer. And I thought, oh gosh, these sheets are working. So originally, when Perfect Planner came about, we created a planner that was called Network Marketing Manager. So it was there. The company was originally called Network Marketing Manager because I thought I'm going to create a planner for network marketers that are like me, that are busy mums, that want a planner in their lives. And, like most other people that start businesses, it's because of a need for themselves. And there were planners. Of course, there's planners. I know I'm not the first planner company out there by a long shot. There's many, many planners out there. But I took that attention to detail that I sort of knew and loved in my career, that sort of the knowledge and the high level experience of planning, and I put that into the concept of network marketing manager. The concept is still there today, 8 years on, but the company has evolved so much more. But I know this is one of your questions later, so I'm going to sort of touch on, I know you're going to ask me a little bit about the financials, and I'll touch on that in a little bit, because there was another little story to how it came to be what it is. But essentially, that's what it was. So it was network marketing manager. We were network marketing manager for 2 years before I thought, oh, let's bring out another type of planner for parents. And we called it the Perfect Parent Planner. But it got complicated. Oh, we've got network marketing manager socials, and we've got Perfect Parent Planner for socials, and we've got 2 different email lists. And I thought, right, how can we merge it? And that's where Perfect Planner Company came in. And that's where we are now today, but with so many more products and so many more different things to get you organized. So whether you're a business owner, whether you are a mum, whether you are somebody now that just wants to plan your life, you've just got, you're ambitious, you've got goals, you're motivated, we've got something for you. You're overwhelmed, we've got something for you. And it's just grown. So we still have a very solid network marketing customer base. They very much are. That business planner is very much the bread and butter of our business. But we've now got all these supporting products that come with it.
I think that is such a great story. It's very inspiring and motivating. You mentioned, having a plan and a strategy and a goal. And when I was doing my little bit of research, I read that you have said, or it's incorporated into your planners, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Now, what were the first steps of your business strategy, and how did you go about executing it?
I still remember the moment that I had this idea to create this planner, because I was, as I said, I was creating these worksheets, and I then had, a gazillion post-it notes everywhere. And I just thought, for all these things, and I'm, this is it, I'm going to create this planner. And I walked in to the kitchen. My husband was sat at the kitchen table, and I had all of these post-it notes and sheets and everything. And I threw it all on the kitchen table. I said, right, we're going to create a planner. This is what we're going to do. We're going to put it all into a planner. We're going to create a planner. And after he'd sort of looked at me and gone, you're absolutely mad, what are you doing? My husband said to me, okay, I think you're onto something. But then he said the same thing when I started a network marketing business as well. He was like, I think you're off your head. What are you doing? And I was like, no, this is it. This is going to be the thing that changes our lives. And I said it again with the planner business. I said, this is going to change our lives. So in that initial moment, there was no plan, there was no strategy. But once we kind of went, actually, we think this is a good idea. We just set about and going, okay, and we work backwards. So when you're setting a goal, when you've got a strategy, essentially a strategy is a fancy word for a plan. You have to have a plan. You cannot wing it. And I knew this from theatre. My husband is also a musician, and he knew that you can't go onto a show or a gig or something without having done the prep work. And lots of people in business tend to look at that end point and go, that's what I want. And they go gung ho and just like fight for that end point. But they haven't really done any of that preparation and the groundwork, first of all. And I knew that from my theatre days and from everything else, that you have to prepare. So I spent quite a lot of time in those initial stages, knowing that what the end goal was and an idea of when we wanted to launch it. And I think we probably started the business or started working on the business probably in a September, I think it was. But we didn't launch that planner until August the following year. So, nearly a year later, because we knew that we wanted to launch it in August, because that was around when people started looking at a planner for the following years. And we had to work back. So, I remember initially, I knew nothing about creating a product. I'd never done that. And I remember in my naivety phoning up my local printers saying, hello, I want to create a planner. They sort of said yes. And they asked me a few questions and I thought, I don't know. I didn't have a clue. What paper do you want? What paperweight do you want? What, GSM of cover do you want? What type of cover do you want? What size? What material? And I thought, I don't know. I don't know the answer to these things, but it made me go, okay, this is the sort of stuff I need to learn. So we spent months just researching, speaking to many, many different types of printers, testing paper, going through that sort of real testing and learning phase. So that by the time we sort of hit the end of that year, we sort of knew what we wanted and how we were going to do it and where we were going to go and get them printed and how we were going to make that happen. And that's when we then started creating a launch plan and everything else around it, that fell into place, because then we knew how long it would take to print. In my naivety, I honestly thought that I would phone up, as I said, the local printers would press print on their little sort of Canon printer. It would chuck out some pages and somebody would stick it all together and da-da, we've got a planner. Of course, it's not like that. The whole binding process and the way that it's bound and everything is so much more technical than that. But that's what you got from the prep, so that we didn't make any major mistakes, because otherwise it could have been really, really costly to us to have those sort of major mistakes, certainly in the early days. So I would say, in anything that you do, that preparation, that initial stage, that learning, that researching, no matter what your business is, us entrepreneurs, we're so about the ideas that sometimes we forget that little bit at the beginning, but that is part of the plan. And that is the attention to detail. And that is the bit that you have to put into everything that you do, because otherwise you'll fall down somewhere along the way. Not, I'll be honest, we've fallen down multiple times. We've been caught out, but you learn, and that's how you grow.
Is there like maybe one specific thing that you maybe regret in your R&D stage or in your planning stage that you'd like entrepreneurs to know to, protect themselves?
Yeah, the first year, there were definitely mistakes in the very first year with the printer that we chose, but that was sort of very industry specific to us. But we weren't to know that, we went on reviews and trust and everything else, but there was some big mistakes there on their part. We learned from it, we brushed ourselves off and carried on. But I would say for us, we tried to grow too quickly in the early days, because in the first year, building up that customer base, people didn't know us. It was very much a toe dip. But I remember I did this campaign on social media and I gave away. It got to March and we still had a load of planners left, because we had no idea how many we were going to sell in our first year, because nobody knew who Network Marketing Manager was. Nobody had a clue. And we did get sales, but we had a load of planners left over. And I thought, right, I just need to get this planner out to anyone and everyone. So I just gave them away for a place in my Facebook group. I said, come into this Facebook group, invite people, tag them in if they're in the business, and they can have a planner for free. And we sent out hundreds of these planners to people for free. We paid for the postage, we did everything, but it paid off. From that, word of mouth spread, and we gained a huge customer base then quite quickly. And I thought, oh, now we've got all these customers, so now let's bring out all these products. And I would say we brought out too much too quickly, without really nurturing what we had in the early days. I got too excited, I suppose. And, I was just like, yeah, we can do this and we can do this, because, as I said, as entrepreneurs, we have all these amazing ideas. And at that point, I probably didn't listen to my own advice. So this was like 7 years ago now. Didn't listen to my own advice and brought out all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, they're now massive staples in our business. But I could have done it better in the early days. But that's the naivety, and we do make these mistakes early on in our business. And as I said, that is how we learn.
I mean, it reminds me, the printer situation that you've just spoken about reminds me of a story that one of my previous guests, Dr. Mariam Zamani, had, where she has a skincare brand product, and she ordered hundreds of boxes for her skincare, and it was a specific shade of pink. So they arrived, and they got put in the shop, and they were underneath bright lights, as skincare products are, and the lovely shade of pink very, very quickly turned white because of the lights. And when Dr. Zamani mentioned this to the company that supplied the boxes and wanted them changed, because they were defected, they said, no, 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 you didn't specifically say that you didn't want them to change color. It's not in the contract. You've got to buy whole new boxes. It's things like that that you wouldn't necessarily, that you just wouldn't think of. And then, like, in turn, that reminds me of something I've heard Kobe Bryant talk about after he gave up or retired from basketball. And I think that he started a production company, and he spoke about not thinking about all the stuff that will happen in your business when you're going through the research and development or design stage. Is you have to think about every tiny thing that could go wrong in that business, and that is how you succeed, by not thinking about the things that will go right, but thinking about the things that will go wrong.
So true. It is so true. You have to plan for that worst case scenario, because things do trip you up. Yeah, I mean, color discrepancies are like the bane of my life. What you get on a sample to what suddenly turns up in the real thing. You think, hang on a minute, this isn't what I wanted. Yeah, you've got to be really careful with that sort of thing. But yeah, plan for every eventuality. But that's the detail. That's the attention to detail that is so important. And that's the attention to detail that we put into everything that we do. Not only that we do sort of physically, but, in terms of the content of our products as well. It's that detail that people overlook because they're too eager to do it all. But be detailed, be specific, and I don't think you can go too wrong.
What are the financial overheads of a stationery company like Perfect Planner Company?
Oh, they're high. they're high. It's so different, a product business to a service-based business. You know, you see so many sort of service-based business owners, you know, shouting about how their, you know, their profit ratio to you know, to their revenue is so high. You know, somebody, they might say that they've got 75% or 80% profit, you know, from a social from a service-based business. It's really not like that with a product-based business. You've got to rely on selling that volume to make it viable, because printing costs are high. You know, the cost per unit of a product is high, way higher than people would imagine. So that profit margin is immediately narrowed. So when people are saying, oh, you know, products are expensive, this, that, and the other, you forget what goes into it. You think that product is not only designed and created by somebody, but it's also then printed or manufactured. There's labor involved in that. And with our planners, every single planner is hand stitched to make sure that it lies flat like this. It's really, really crucial. So, because there's nothing worse than a piece of paper that flops back on you. You know, so the labor costs are high. Then you want to receive it in nice packaging, and packaging to us again is crucial. We like to give people, we call it the Apple experience. I don't know if you've ever bought an Apple product, and it's so beautiful when they open it. That whole opening is part of that joy of receiving that product and buying that product. You know, in the detail of every little bit that you peel back and it leads you to another thing. We like to create that Apple experience with our products. So a lot of money goes into packaging. Then of course there's dispatch and postage and somebody to do that, a team, you know, team now, because it used to be that it was just me and my husband. You know, we'd have boxes piled up. Like Christmas time, you could never see a Christmas tree because we would have everything at home. But now we've got a warehouse where we keep all of the products. We've got an office, we've got a team. So it's totally different. So the overhead's now high because now we have staff, we have people on the books, but we also have freelancers that we work with as well, agencies that we work with. So that, you know, it's grown. So that revenue to profit is so different in a product-based business compared to service. But for me, you know, so many people have said, why are you not service-based? Why are you not bringing out services? And I have tried and thought about it, but my passion is in products. It's in that tangible thing that we can hold. And you know, I know now, sort of with the knowledge and the experience that I've got, that I can take it to so many different areas in a service-based field. And I will do that, and that will be happening. But for now, you know, products are amazing, but you have to understand that profit and revenue, the gap is much, much bigger than it is on any standard service-based business. It just has to be. There's so many different elements.
You mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show about, you know, it's not just about throwing a design at, you know, a printing company and watching it, you know, print out very quickly. And it just, you know, there is so much care and attention and detail that goes into making, you know, a perfect planner, because, you know, I'm guilty of buying less expensive ones and them not lasting and them not being very good. So I can understand that a lot of time, money, and energy goes into making these perfect planners, because I think that you know, what is that expression? What you pay for what you get for.
Yeah,
You want to be an organized person and succeed in life. I think that you do have to go for the better quality things to really help support.
Yeah, it's for us, it's the quality that is important, of course, you know, because it's got to last, it's got to withstand a year of being chucked about somebody's bag, going into somebody's bag, you know, in and out, taking it out in a coffee shop, taking it out in the restaurant, taking it out, you know, at meetings, and it's got to withstand that and still look good a year later. Um, but also the quality of the concept for us, because it's an investment. And I think, as you said, people do go, oh gosh, it's so expensive, it's too expensive. And actually, our standard business planner is £32. I don't think that is a lot of money to invest in your business and to invest in planning and organization, because if you get that plan right, and we do, as I talked about earlier, that preparation stage, and we really go into detail in that and in the planner, but you get that bit right, it's going to make your year so much easier. So to invest in that £32, you're investing in a tool that will help you in your business. We've also got planners as well for just general sort of lifestyle stuff, but it still have that preparation part in it, because even if you're not an entrepreneur, taking that time to prepare and think about your year can make the difference as to whether you have a good year or a bad year. If you have that year that you constantly feel like you're chasing your tail, and you're not on top of it, and it's a really uncomfortable feeling. So we try and help people to do that with all of the products. It's an investment. It's an investment in you, your business, your mindset.
Yeah. I think that everybody in life, isn't it human nature to want to do better and to excel and to grow and to learn? So you're right, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter if you work in a business and you want to make it to the next level, and if you've got sales to make, or even if you just want to have personal development, being organized and keeping, a planner like yours, is beneficial to that. So yeah, you're right. £32 for business planner. I'm sure that being organized will help that person make sales, or expand their business into another region, and just things like that. So yes, although it might be a little bit more money, I suppose, than other planners.
Yeah, then going into the supermarket and buying, one of the ones that, you can get them for £5. You can get them for £5, but, even down to paper quality might not be the same. And, I know a lot of entrepreneurs use sort of a highlighter method, where you highlight out your day and stuff like that in different colors to time block your day. We had to even test that. Does it bleed through? Is it going to bleed, if you use a gel pen, will it bleed through your paper? And a lot of the cheaper ones will, because of the thickness and the quality of the paper that they use. And we don't want that to happen. But that does come down to that paper quality. And those cheaper planners will have a lesser quality paper and a lesser quality paper weight to get them to that price that they are. And also they're printing, in hundreds of thousands of copies, which we're not there. We're not there yet. We're not supermarket level. We're quite niche.
We've spoken about the financial overheads of Perfect Planner Company, but what about the business and lifestyle planner that you have? Does that help businesses organize such commitments?
The financials, yeah, very much, very, very much, because all business revolves around money, doesn't it? Whether we, it's quite funny. I remember, just as a side note, I remember when I first started in network marketing, and there was that little bit, because it took me quite a while to kind of be proud of that industry that I was in, because it was, there's so much sort of negativity focused around network marketing. But I think network marketing is brilliant, especially as a base for entrepreneurship. It really teaches you so much, and taught me so much so quickly. And I would see people making these huge sums of money in network marketing, but I was embarrassed. I was like, oh God. So I used to say, I'm doing it because I love the product. So I'm not doing it for the money. But at the end of the day, why as entrepreneurs are we all running businesses? It's because we want to make money on our terms, in our way, in our own unique way. however that is, whatever that business means, is and means to us. And we want to make money and be paid for those services or the products that we're offering, because we're generally, when it comes to entrepreneurship, it stems somewhere out of a passion and something that we love doing, and that we can build it around a life that we want for ourselves. So as much as people might not say money isn't important, it is important, because we want to be paid for what we're doing, and we have bills to pay, and we have holidays that we want to go on, and we have kids that we want to feed and clothe and entertainment and all those things that we want to do. So I think money is important. So we should focus on that in our business. It should be a big, massive focus where those sales are coming from. So in all of our planners, we start off in those preparation stages, sort of getting people to assess their finances, which I know for so many is a really scary thing. They don't want to do it. That's the bit that I'm going to ignore that bit, put the wall up. I'm not going to look at my finances. But money needs somewhere to go. So when you are putting a figure on, or and you're saying this, I want to earn 5k a month, right? That's my goal. I want to earn £5,000 a month. You need to know, first of all, where that money goes. So you have to do that assessment. You have to do that assessment. What do I need to pay out every month? And also, is there anything in my finances that I can let go of? Because many times it's quite funny when I've done this exercise with people in groups, and I run at the beginning of the year a course called the 6 Steps to Success. And we do that because that's part of the planner. And one of those 6 steps is looking at our finances. And people have come back to me when I've run that course before and gone, oh, I just saved myself like £200 a month because I was paying for, or £300 a month because I'm paying for a load of standing orders and direct debits and God knows what, and subscriptions that I don't even look at. And so I think it's really, really important to tackle that first. Then this is what I've got to pay out every single month. These are the important things that have got to be paid out every single month. Then, so this £5,000, and I say that because that's a figure that so many people say, I want to make £5,000 a month. But what for? Where are you going to put it? Where's those little pockets? So, that bit might be towards the home expenses, and this might be towards investing in myself, might be with a business coach or courses or whatever, and this bit might be for my children, and this pocket will be for the holiday fund or the investment fund, or where is that money going to go? Because then you can go out there and set those sales targets to match that. It's silly just throwing out a target and not actually really understanding what that's going towards. So that is all part of that preparation stage, knowing exactly where your money's going to go. And we focus on that in the planners and in the 6 Steps to Success course as well. And then every single month we have a sales target page. So, for example, for us, if you look at our business, we might look at it in January, say, and we want to make, our target is, and we base that on what we made last year plus a little bit more, so that we know that we're growing. Where is that money going to come from? And that's how we can work out our sales targets. So we know the overall target. Let's just use the £5,000 example again. It's different for us, as because we've got obviously all those overheads that we talked about. But let's just use a £5,000 example. So this much will come from web sales. So we know exactly where we need to channel the energy and channel, whether it's Facebook adverts or something like that, or social media adverts, that brings people into our website. But we're also going to make this much money from Amazon. So what do we need to do on our Amazon sales in order to do that? How much money are we going to make from the course that we're going to be selling? how much money are we going to make from other sources, whether it's, our corporate clients or bespoke clients or anything like that. So we know exactly where those pools of money from, and then we can sort of put the energy into all of those things to make sure that the sales come in. And I used to do this in network marketing, and we used to call it volume mapping, that we would be like, this is the amount of money that we want to make, but I'm going to do that by selling X amount of skincare products, and then I'm going to sell X amount of, say, weight loss products. And you would know, so you could channel the energy into that. And we bring that into all of the business planners, setting these targets and we do that consistently every single month, and get people to tot it up as well every single month, so that if you've got an overall year target, you can actually then sort of plan it out, because some months might be busier. So for us, for example, April, May, our sales aren't as good as they are in November, December, January. Quarter 4 for us and Quarter 1 as a product business is our busiest times. So we allocate for that. So when we've got the year target, we can actually then allocate and go, right, that's where we're going to make that chunk of money. We're going to make less then. And so you can map it out, and it all comes down to planning and strategizing and understanding your sales. But we help you to do that within the planners. The lifestyle ones as well, not just the business ones, because they might not be, the people that might not be running a business still want to know where their money's coming from when they go out and get their paycheck every single month. Where am I going to divvy that money up, and have I got enough to sustain the lifestyle that I want?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that hearing about it just sounds like you've really thought about everything. We've talked about like how much money I need to put toward web sales, Amazon, the course. To break it down into little bite-sized pieces like that really does help clear the mind. And
Absolutely, because I think when we're overwhelmed, if oh, I want to make this £5,000 a month, how on earth am I going to do that? It's overwhelming to somebody, to the small business owner. They're just like, I can't get my head around that, or I want to make 6 figures or 7 figures or whatever it is. It can feel massively overwhelming. But when you break it down into the most minute of details, so for example, when I did this back in the day in the network marketing business, I was like, oh, hang on a moment. I only need to sell 10 weight loss collections to make that amount of money that I wanted to make. Well, that isn't a lot. So I'm going to go to a network meeting and I'm going to talk to somebody about that. And I would come away from that networking meeting and I would have made 2 sales. Right, great, that's done. So you can kind of see, you can work out where you can make those sales best, according to what it is that you're selling. And breaking it down suddenly makes that goal so much more achievable. Because when it feels out of reach and it feels too much, we get overwhelmed, we then procrastinate, we then, we're not clear, we haven't got that clarity. And that's when we wing it, and we don't execute properly, we don't execute the plan. So knowing all of those details, taking that time at the beginning of every single month and at the beginning of the year to know what you want to achieve overall, and then breaking it down, and knowing as well when you've got busy times and when you haven't, when it comes to sales as well, because many people who are entrepreneurs have done as I said, have touched on that they become entrepreneurs to fit it into a life that they want to create for themselves. And for example, me as a busy mum, I don't want to work, for 4 weeks over the summer holidays. So I know that there's not going to be a lot of energy going into sales at that point. So you have to map it out and go, right, I can't expect to make loads of money in that time if I'm not going to be focusing on the business. So it's just about mapping it in and mapping out what works for you. and as a business owner, I know that I can sell loads in September. So I'm going to put a big chunk of that overall year financial target into September or January or whatever, when people will know their businesses and they'll know when they're available to make that money as well. So it's just planning it out.
Yeah. So our, some of our listeners may know that um, you don't always need money in the bank to start a business. Now, I highly recommend people do your 6 steps to success course before launching their business. But you can get a loan and you can get an investment in order to launch a business. So, as we're on finances, how did you finance the launch of Perfect Planner Company?
When we first started, and I talked about how it all came about, that I had this idea, and obviously at that point I had no idea how much it would cost. But I said I would talk about this when you asked me this question at the beginning. The first idea, when I said that we were going to create a planner, I actually wanted to do something much more technical than a paper planner. And I wanted to create an app. That was the first idea, the very first thing that we wanted to do. And when we started looking into that very early on, we realized how much that cost. And we were talking easily 6 figures plus. And of course, we didn't have that. We came from the theatre. We didn't have that sort of money. People didn't make that kind of money in the theatre. Theatre is very much a passion project. You don't do it for the money, you do it for the love. And so I didn't have any of that sort of money in the bank to be able to do that. So we wrote the business plan and we did all of that, and we spent weeks and weeks and weeks curating this perfect business plan. Took it to the bank thinking they're going to go for this, they're going to think it's amazing, and they didn't. We got rejected by, I think, 4 or 5 different lenders that said it's just not viable. Your business idea is not viable. And so we were a bit deflated by that. And that's when we said, well, why don't we do the paper version first? Make the money, and then we can launch into doing the app. As it turned out, over the years, technology changed. And so that idea was sort of parked and has never really come out again. Because it is still expensive. And actually we realized, as I love putting pen to paper, everybody else does too. I say everybody else, lots of people do too. So the business sort of came through, just still through love of planning. But in terms of money, I think there's so many different ways now that people can do it. Crowdfunding is huge. But I never wanted to go down that route. So we needed money for the first print run, and we realized obviously how expensive printing was, but everything else we did ourselves. And I think certainly when it comes to starting a business, there's 2 different schools of thought. People will say outsource, get people that are better than you to do something because it will grow your business faster. But I also think as an entrepreneur, we need to understand every single element of our business to know how we want it to be before we can give it over to somebody else. So there are many things in an early stage of a business that you can do yourself, which is why as entrepreneurs, we wear the many, many hats. We are product development, we are research, we are the financial manager, we are the PR manager, we are the social media manager. We are everything in a business, because I think it's good to learn. Obviously with that comes time and a great deal of stress and all of those things, but it doesn't need to be done quickly. And I don't know if you remember at the beginning, I said that I rushed into things and did it too quickly. So take your time and learn your trade. So there's no need, particularly depending on what you're doing, to have this sort of mass investment and to get yourself into a situation until you know that your idea is viable and that it's going to pay off. You hear people, like someone like Stephen Bartlett, for example, would say that in the early days of his business, he literally slept under his desk in his office, got a couple of hours sleep, and then he did it again. And I'm not necessarily saying that that is the right way, but that's what we did. We lived, breathed, slept our business in the early days, so that we could learn everything and do it all ourselves, so that we understood how it worked, so that we could outsource. Obviously, I couldn't print myself. That money, in answer to your question, we had a few £1,000s, and we ran a very, very small print run at the beginning whilst we built the customer base. And when we built the customer base, we could then take the money that we made in the first year of our planners. And remember, I gave away a lot as well, and that would have been an investment. But I figured that that was a worthy investment in order to build that audience and to build a customer base and to build people that trusted us, that trusted what we were doing, to then go on and do that again in the second year. And in that second year, we made a pool of money and we invested it again and started bringing in new products. And it just grew in that way. So thankfully for us, we didn't take a loan. We did take a loan in the business later on to develop it even further for premises, but we knew at that point that we had a business that was actually going somewhere. This wasn't a pie in the sky idea that wasn't going to come to anything. This was now a profitable business. And for us, we're not about making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds and it all just sitting there, while we sort of live this wonderful sort of laptop lifestyle. For us, we feel that if we can pay our staff, we're running a business, we're making, oh, pardon me, it's turned off after a while. Let me just make edit there. Okay, start again. For us, it is about making sure that there's not loads and loads and loads of money sort of lying around. We don't need that in our life, but we do need to know that our staff are being paid for, that our bills are being paid, and that my family are getting a life that I want to give them. And so that's really, really important. So we work to that. We obviously work to profit. We're a profit business. We're a business to make profit, to make sales. But so long as everything is taken care of, I'm really content with that personally in my life, because I know that, we're doing what we set out. As an entrepreneur, I set out to make sure that we had a happy life and that I could provide my children and give them, amazing experiences in life, and that we had a business that was successful. And we're doing that. And so, we don't need to kind of keep reinvesting. We don't need to kind of keep taking loans and do all of those things. We invest now. We've got the premises. And as I said, we took that loan so that we could expand. And maybe in a few years' time, we might choose to expand again to a next level. We're already outgrowing our office space. So at some point, we might need to look at developing that again. And that's great. And we want to keep building on our Amazon presence and our web sales and grow our customer base. But we just keep reinvesting the profits that we can take out of the business into developing that more. And so that's a really nice place to be. We're in a really nice place financially in the business to be able to do those things. Um, but to somebody starting out, see what you can do. I would say, see what you can do on your own first and make sure that it's viable before you go into those sort of commitment, life-changing loans and bank loans. And I personally don't think that banks pay much attention. We spend all this time creating that business plan for them, and I think they barely look through it. They'll look through the financial forecast at the end, which is important. But at the end of the day, you've got to do the work to make those financials happen anyway. So do the business plan for you, and make sure that you know what you're doing. And I think do it as much as you can yourself. There's
Yeah.
a long course getting there.
Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a really important lesson to learn. And to be honest, it sounds like, well, yours is a success story, in my opinion, and I'm sure in many's. And I can see that you've had, you know, there's been parts of, you know, the timeline where you've had to try stuff and, you know, pivot because it's not quite right. But were there any particular moments, you know, in the growth of Perfect Planner Company that have been particularly um challenging as a business owner, and if so, like, how did you overcome that?
Oh gosh, there's been so many challenges. So with every high that you have in business, I think that there are a multitude of challenges as well. I would say that our biggest challenge probably was Brexit. My political opinion, this isn't about politics, but whoever came up with the concept of Brexit, I literally could throttle them. I think it killed so many small UK small businesses. We had such a lovely, lovely customer base in Europe. The minute Brexit came in, nobody knew what they were doing. So not only for our sort of our individual customers, it became a nightmare because we couldn't ship to Europe. So we were posting out products happily to our European customers, but what was happening was that they were getting charged, and it still happens today. They get charged VAT on their on the country of arrival. So if somebody in France has ordered a product, we'd send it out to them, but it will hit the customs borders at France. In France, this customer will get a phone call. I mean, what a laborious way to do business. Or they'll get an email that says, we've got a product for you and you need to pay now your country tax. So they would then have to pay another 20%, say our VAT is 20%. So it varies from country to country. But the customer didn't understand this. They didn't know. We didn't know. They'd be, hang on a minute, why am I getting charged? I've just paid for a product, I've just paid for shipping to get it to my country, and now I'm being charged a further 20%. I don't want it. So it would get sent back to us. By the time it's got to France and been rejected and sat there for God knows how long while they sort this out, and then it would come back to us. It was coming back trashed because it had been through the delivery system multiple times. So then not only have we then lost the money because we now have to refund the customer as well. So not only have we lost the money for the customer to get the product, we've had to pay the shipping twice because they billed us. We've now got a trash product that we can't sell as well. So it was costing us hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of pounds to do this. And because we just didn't realize that this was going on initially. And then it was like, hang on a minute, what is this? So we put things up on the website. We can see that you're in Europe. Please be aware that you will have to pay these additional costs. Only proceed if you're happy with this, because they're not our costs. Because people would say, why are you charging us this extra money? It's like, it's not us, it's the government, because it's coming from the UK. So because of all these Brexit charges, but the European customers weren't reading that. They're just like, yeah, I want to order my product. And then we tried to do it through Amazon as well, and the products just got trashed as well. Same processes. They didn't know how to process it from a European company, from a UK company. So in the end, we had to pull business in Europe, which was a huge cost. So not only all that money that we've lost in trash, broken products, and all the refunds that we had to make to those European customers, we lost in sales further down and growing that customer base. And it's so frustrating. So that was a massive challenge. That was one of our biggest challenges. Printers that don't say what they're going to do. So you get the samples. Of course, you know, when we print, we get samples. We get samples sent to us. Colours look amazing. The quality is amazing. One year we bought in our products, and the products that turned up were nothing like the samples. Absolutely nothing like the samples. So they arrived in September, ready for us to sell at our launch period. And they were filthy dirty. They were grubby. They were, you know, they literally had handprints all over them. They were scratched. They were dented. They were damaged. And there were thousands and thousands and thousands of planners that were unusable. That was one year. So they all had to be reprinted. Everything had to be reprinted. So, you know, running a product business is really, really hard. Your challenges are so much more different to what they would be with a service-based business. And God, I mean, there's, you know, there's been so many things that sometimes I think, why are we still here? Why am I still doing this? But I believe if you love what you're doing, if you're passionate about what you're doing, if you believe in your product and you know that it's going to be helping people, and I know it helps people, I know it changes people's lives, I know that we've created a tool that can make so much difference to somebody. So I keep going through
Yeah.
all those challenges. You find ways and you work around it. You know, the stress levels have been high on many occasions, but it's like, okay, right, rant about it, shout about it. Now, let's go. That's not gone according to plan. How can we navigate our way around it? And we've done it many, many, many times, hundreds of times over. Competitors, copying, you know, we've had it all. We've had it all. I don't think there isn't a challenge that we haven't had.
So we've talked about the design of your product, and you've spoken about them being hand stitched, so they laid down flat beautifully. Have you been met with any supply chain issues since launching?
Yeah, paper shortage. Who knew? That is a thing. One year there was, in one of our planners, we had to settle for a different, and it was only on a tab page, but a slightly different colour paper. But yeah, there was, in these particular tab pages, we wanted them to look a certain way, and we couldn't do it because there was a paper shortage. Um, and these kind of things were happening, you know, like you might have heard about it with cars, for example. Like, you know, there were certain parts of cars which they couldn't produce new cars last year because this certain part wasn't available. And so the secondhand car market went absolutely wild. And it's been similar things with our planners, you know, that we've come across gold spiral shortages. You know, we could only get a certain type of gold. It was more yellow gold than a goldy gold that we wanted. And, you know, a certain color of paper had to be altered because we couldn't get that particular shade of white that we wanted. So, and all of that has come as a result of COVID, most definitely. Brexit isn't to blame for that, for sure. But we print internationally. We don't print. We do print some of our products in the UK, and some are printed internationally. And so, yeah, it's amazing. This affected people all over the world and factories all over the world with what was going on. Yeah, we had some tough blows with Brexit and COVID, and did affect things. Luckily for us, thank goodness, COVID didn't affect our business in terms of our customers and our sales. In fact, it probably enhanced it because people were losing their jobs and leaving their jobs, and you know, things were happening there. So people had more time on their hands and they turned to entrepreneurship. So our planners helped people then. So COVID didn't affect us in that way, but it did affect it in terms of the types of we had to look at different alternatives in our products. Not always in a bad way, because it made us suddenly, with certain things, we had to try things a different way, and that might, in certain cases, have been right for us. But yeah, again, another challenge, another learning curve.
Yeah, sounds like it. I mean, so the design where was the first thing that I noticed when I was looking at planners a couple of weeks ago. But then, after reading what was inside the planner and understanding whether it was right for me, another thing that jumped out at me was that Perfect Planner Company really seemed to care about my needs and offered me things that I needed before I knew about it myself. So I just felt like the planner had been designed for me. Which leads on to my next question. You deliver exceptional customer service for that reason. The design, and you really care about the user. Is that how you deliver? Like, how do you deliver exceptional customer service? Like, have I just answered my own question there by saying the design and knowing what I need before I need it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly when it comes to that, the theatre taught me that you had to foresee problems before they happened. So I always had to be one step ahead. Um, I would know if somebody was heading towards the wrong place on stage and that piece of scenery was going to come down on their heads. I could see it happening. So we would be able to act on that, whether it's to stop that piece of scenery moving until we know that they've gone, back into the right place, or whatever it is. You have to have like eyes at the front, at the side, at the back. You have to hear things that your normal person doesn't hear. It was ingrained in me to foresee and constantly see problems. So all of that has gone into our planners. What are people going to need? And as you said it exactly right, you know within the planner, it solved things for you and told you to do things that you didn't even know that you needed to do. But actually, by doing that, that's made a change maybe in your life. But customer service for us, we have a motto in the office and with the team, is to be customer obsessed, is to be obsessed about our customers. If we put ourselves out there, we check every single planner that goes out. So you would have received your planner in that beautiful black box, and it's got what's called a belly band around it. The factory doesn't attach the belly bands. We do, because when we take them out, we take out the planners out of the box, we check it, and then when we're satisfied with it, we put the thank you card in, and then we put the belly bands in. And that's how we do it. And as I said, we've got a dispatch team, and they do that. They check every single one, and they ask the question, if I received that, would I be happy with it? And most of them say, would Monique be happy with this? If the answer is no, it goes onto a reject pile that we do sell down the line. We do sort of towards the end of 2024, we'll sell off what we call our B stock, which are the ones that we're not happy with, but people get it very, very cheap. But we are obsessed with our customers, and I have been from the off. Having that Facebook group, having that community, having that sort of way to speak to our connect with our clients on a more personal level means that I can sort of get into the heart of what matters to them the most. So it's all there, from the community aspect to the packaging aspect, to that Apple experience of opening those products, to connecting with them afterwards, the customer service, the conversation, to being completely obsessed with how people receive their products. Yeah, we really take care. It is important, because at the end of the day, your customers are your lifeline. If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. If you treat your customers badly, they'll talk about that to other people, and you don't have a business. Word of mouth, the way that people talk about you and your business it's number one. It's number one. Customer service has to be the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because it will fall apart. it will fall apart. Nobody wants to buy a product that they know that's going to fall apart. I mean, don't get me wrong, on occasion there might be, you know, a defect, but we will deal with it. Even if we think, I'm not sure about this, you know, there are moments where you kind of go, that wasn't, I'm not sure about that. The customer, I don't think the customer was right in this aspect, but the customer is right, and we have to work in that way, and that's how our business relies on it. And sometimes we lose a bit of money, most of the time we don't, because then they'll come back again. It's not about that initial one sale, it's about making sure that they come back again and again and again and again, because that's where the money is. That's where you make those sales, from that constant repetition of sales. And you do that by keeping your customers close and looking after them.
Why is it important, in your opinion, for entrepreneurs and business owners to reflect, set goals, and clear their mind of their overwhelming thoughts at the end of each day?
Yeah, because we go through so much, don't we? We go through so much in the day. You know, as we just talked about, those challenges, you know, can you imagine if I went to bed like with all of that loaded in my mind? You know, you have to offload somewhere. So that's why we created that bedside book, was to be able to sort of brain dump and offload at night before you go to bed, meaning that maybe you can just sleep that little bit easier. That's the idea behind that. But if we carry all these things with us all the time, all these, whether it's negative thoughts or positive thoughts, whatever it is, especially at night time, and it's all there built up, I don't think you can necessarily go into the next day with the utmost clarity. And if you've got a goal, which most of us will have as entrepreneurs, you know, we will have, whether it's sales goals or you know, a particular step that you need to take in your business, and you need to do this little micro step the next day to ensure that you're working towards that goal. You need to come at it with a clear head, you know, and we know all about time management and doing the most important thing first and making sure that those things get done. But you've got to have a clear head. So reflection, review, also because we don't want to waste our time, right? Doing things that aren't working in our business. We want to make sure that we're focusing on the things that are working for us. So it's good to know at the end of the day, did that work well? Did that not work well for me? Shall I do less of that, more of that? You know, so you can work it all out. And then you can tackle those goals with a clear head. And you have to do that in whatever way works for you. So if you do yoga, go and do your workout, go and get that done, because it will bring you a sense of calm. You will know that you have accomplished that exercise goal for the day or whatever it is as well. And then you can go ahead and tackle your business and what needs to be done. So I think it's absolutely vital that we practice those mindfulness, that we look at our gratitude. What are we grateful for? What, you know, what's working well for us? Let's review, let's reflect, and let's do that regularly, so that we tackle every single thing with a clear head, and it enables us to take each step, because that's what goal setting is. That's all it is. You've got that goal, you know what you want to achieve, and everything is just a step along the way. It's just one further foot up the rung of the ladder. It's another step up that staircase. That's all it is. And if you're overwhelmed and you've got too much going on in your head, you can't do it. So get clear, do what you need to do to make sure that you're in a good place to tackle that next step, and it will happen so much quicker as well.
To me, that sounds like what you need to do in order to have a healthy work-life balance. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's hard, isn't it? Let's face it, let's be real. Work-life balance, especially as a parent, it's tough, you know, especially at times like now. you know, I've had to lock myself away to make sure that I can record this podcast, you know, without anybody sort of coming at me, you know, with an electric car under my feet or something like that while I'm here. But, you know, you have to look after yourself first and foremost. I love the saying that Tony Robbins said, that he said, if an aeroplane is coming down, whose mask do you put on first? And the answer is yours. Because if you don't put that mask on first, you can't look after anybody else. So your health, well-being has got to come as a priority, because that enables you to look after all the other elements, whether it's family life, your business, whatever. So do that bit first. That will give you that real healthy sense of work-life balance. And be careful with your time. Don't try and do too much. You know, manage your time, plan it out. Have that, you know, this is what I'm going to do. Make an appointment, you know. Today is about my health and well-being. This day is about my business, or this hour is about health and well-being, and this hour is about my business. So you feel like you've got that balance, because as soon as you feel like one thing is overtaking, if I'm spending too much time on self-care and all of that side of things, or I'm spending too much time organizing the family, you're going to feel frustrated that your business isn't achieving. If you spend too much time on your business but not enough time with your family, you're going to get frustrated that you feel like your family is suffering because of it. So get that balance, you know, right. Get that balance right for you, and everybody is different. But know what that is, and know what your limits and your boundaries and all of those things are, because that is what's going to help you to feel the most accomplished.
Do you have a top tip for setting and sticking to a New Year's intention, I like to call them, but AKA resolution?
Yeah, the resolutions that are gone by February.
Yeah.
Well, we all do it, don't we? We all set those goals and New Year's resolutions and targets, you know, whatever we want to call it, you know. But I think there's a couple of things here. One, it has to mean something to you for you to stick with it. Because many people set goals, set New Year's resolutions on the 1st of January. Today is the day. This is the day I'm going to make a difference in my life. This is the day I'm going to change my life. And by the 1st of February, they've forgotten what it was. But if it really means something to you, I don't think you will forget it. I don't think you will fall off the resolution wagon. You know, you will keep going. So I think first and foremost, when you're setting those New Year's resolutions or your goals, make sure that it's something that you really want, and something that really means something to you, you know, something that will make a difference to your life, to your family's life, to whatever, you know. Make sure that it actually, yeah, means something to you, because then you are more likely to see it through. And also the thing is to not become overwhelmed with it. So for example, if I use mine, like, I'm always striving to be healthier, fitter, stronger in my physical self. And I've had a lot of challenges this year that have held me back. Now I could just say my New Year's resolution is to lose weight, but that's not specific enough. So I need to get specific on that. How much weight do I want to lose? And let's just say, for argument's sake, I want to lose a stone. I could see that as massively overwhelming. How am I going to do that? I can't see how I'm going to do that. Well, I'm not going to do it by next week. No, I'm not. But what about if on day one of this process of losing weight, I just walked for 15 minutes that day? What about if the next day I walked for 20? Do you see what I mean? So you just add tiny little things in every single day about getting towards that goal. It's the small steps that count. And I think we tend to, when we set goals and we set New Year's resolutions, as I said, earlier on, we look at that end point and we see it as something massively overwhelming, or, a financial goal. I want to save a deposit for a new house. How am I going to save £15,000? That is a nightmare. I can't do it. And we give up. But if we set real small goals, I'm going to take X amount out of my paycheck this month and put it towards a deposit. Suddenly that's not so bad as that goal of £15,000 that you need for the deposit for that house. Break them down into real micro steps, because it makes it more manageable, makes it more achievable. And if it is something that means something to you, you will carry it on. You will see it through. It's the ones that we set that we just, oh, it's New Year, and so I have to set some resolutions because that's what we have to do at the beginning of the new year, that don't really mean anything to you. And they're the ones that we're going to not see through.
Do you have a best piece of advice for being a successful entrepreneur in 2024?
Just don't give up. I know that sounds so cliche, but as the listeners have heard, I've been through so many challenges in my business, and I could have given up 100 times. I could have given up within the first few months of the business, when I rung up that printers and realised I didn't have a clue what I was talking about. I didn't know anything. Could have given up then. It's too difficult. Can't be bothered. It's too much work. But I didn't. I kept going. And then there was another challenge and kept going. And there's another challenge, and didn't have an audience, didn't have anybody to buy my product. Okay, that's another challenge, right? How am I going to get around that? And in business, it's just part of the course. Something works, something doesn't. Something works, something doesn't. Something works, and that's how we learn and we build and we scale. And you could give up 100 times over, but if you believe in what you're doing, if you believe in your product, your service, if you love it, if you're passionate about it, if it makes your heart sing, if it makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning, if it consumes your thoughts, you have to go through with it. So when the shit hits the fan, which it will, when the plan goes wrong, which it will, just navigate yourself back, pull yourself back in and go, okay, that didn't work. What can I do next? Problem solve. Become a problem solver. Just don't give up. If you want to do it, I believe wholeheartedly we can achieve anything that we want to achieve. I know people can. It's just whether they're committed enough, or not lazy about it, or prioritize these things, But if the passion is there, and the will and the drive and the enthusiasm and all of those things are there, you will do it. So just don't give up. Don't drop at the first hurdle. We're made of stronger stuff, We're entrepreneurs. We're strong.
Yeah.
So go smash it. Go do it and keep going.
I'm incredibly happy that you didn't give up. I'm glad that you didn't give up. It's obvious to see that this is what you're meant to have done. You've helped so many people, as I'm sure, grow their business, and it seems like you're so happy growing yours and doing what you love doing. And for selfish reasons, I'm really happy that you didn't give up, because I need that
I'm happy that
planet
you're
in my life. What I'm not happy about is that we're approaching the end of the interview. I've got one final question to ask. Where can people buy Perfect Planner Company products?
So you can, we hang out mostly on Instagram. So our Instagram is perfectplanner.company. So come over and say hello. You can find me showing up on stories and chatting to everybody there. If you want to buy a planner, you can, in the link tree in Instagram, you'll find all of our links anyway. But our website is perfectplannerco.com. So perfectplannerco.com, and you can buy the planners from us there. And from that, you'll be sent into a spiral of email automation loveliness. and that will tell you about our Facebook group, and you can come and hang out there. And there's top tips in there. We talk about goal setting and habit tracking and, all those sort of brilliant things that we need in our business to keep us going. So you'll find us through one of those two ways.
I will put links in the show notes. So anybody that would like to, purchase a product or learn more about the company, just find the links in the show notes of this episode. Thank you so much for being a guest. I've learned so much. I feel really inspired now to start 2024 with a bang and make it the best one yet.
Thank you for having me.